Hello and welcome back to my channel. I am Mallory. That's Mallory with an A-R-Y, not an O-R-Y. Okay? Okay. Alright, so as you guys know, today's video is going to be all about my editing routine and how I got this particular image from straight out of the camera to looking like this after I have edited it. Okay? Alright, if you are interested in learning my editing routine, please stay tuned and I will be right back. Alright, so first I'm going to go ahead and take my raw image and drag it to Photoshop. I do all of my editing in Photoshop, so that is where I'm going to be starting. It's going to take a minute for it to load up. Okay, stop jumping and just open. There you go. Alright, so because I shoot in RAW, when I open my image, it goes right into the Camera Raw app. In here, I typically mess with my highlights, sometimes my exposure, depending on if it's a little too bright or a little too dark, depending on how I shot, which I've already messed with this yesterday. The highlights, I typically bring down, which you can see it does take some highlight away from her face. Right, so now she looks more of a normal skin tone. But also you can see more of the image in the back, that bokeh area, you can see more details there as well, right? Okay, and then I'm going to also mess with some of the whites, bring that down just a bit as well, so you can kind of see where the hot spots were on her hands, on her face, in the back, just bringing those down just a little bit. And then I also go ahead and play with the blue primary saturation. This is the original color of the image, and then I just bring it up just a little bit to kind of make the green a little bit more greener and then give her skin tone a little bit more of a pop. Right, so you guys can see that. So that's typically what I do. I'm also going to go ahead and straighten the image just a little bit. You can see that it was a little crooked. So I'm going to go ahead, press enter on that. And now the image is a little straighter. Okay. Alright, so I'm going to go ahead and open this up. That's typically all I use in the Camera Raw app at this stage of editing. Alright, so once it is open, the first thing I do is I Command J to create a duplicate layer of that background layer. I don't want to touch this. I leave it locked and I leave it as background. I don't touch that. So my next layer, I'm just going to go ahead and title that as base. So that means that I will only work on this layer and the layers above it only. Okay, so on my base layer, I typically remove blemishes or any imperfections that stand out quite a bit, that dodge and burn or frequency separation cannot fix. So, which in some people's case they say they can fix everything, so that's not my experience, but if you know how to do it that way, go ahead and give me some tips. I would be more than happy to hear how exactly you do that process. So right now I'm kind of really close in on the face. These details typically don't matter because her face it's not a beauty shot, so you may not be able to see it far away, but it's just a pet peeve of mine. If I'm able to see it and I can fix it, I just go ahead and do it, especially if it doesn't take a long time to do it. I just go ahead and do that. Just getting rid of some of these imperfections. There's a line here. There you go. This area here I don't like, but I'll fix that on the frequency separation layer. This here, get that out of the way. Alright, so there are a few strands that are really bothering me. So I'm going to go ahead and use my clone stamp tool, which you can use, or you can't see my face, an S for a shortcut. So if I just type in S, it'll go ahead and give me that clone stamp tool. When I'm doing this, I definitely turn the hardness down just so that it can blend in with the sides a lot easier than me having the hardness up to 100%. So for this particular tool, I have to press Alt or Option to grab a piece that I want to copy or clone, and then I'm going to go ahead and just do that right over the area that I want. Probably went a little too far over, so I'm going to go on this side here a little closer, making sure my brush size is just about as big as that hair, just a little bit over, because I want to get all those pieces out. Once I do that, I can go ahead and just kind of bring it over that with that patch tool. That way you kind of get rid of it. I'm also going to use the patch tool to get rid of that, the rest of the hair there. And then you can go ahead and see the before, after the hair is gone. The hair frizz here doesn't bother me much. She has really nice baby hair, but this particular strand here stands out. So I kind of want to get rid of that. I'm going to go ahead and press S for that clone stamp tool. Making sure my hardness again is on 0 for this particular part of my editing. And then I'm going to make sure my brush is a little bit bigger than that strand. I'm going to hold down Alt or Option to get to stamp or clone a piece of the image that I want to copy on. And I'm just going to follow that hair strand. Yeah, you're going to see some parts duplicated that looks unnatural. I'll go back and fix those as well in just a moment. Okay, so you can see here you have 2 of the same lines. Here you have 2 of the same lines. Again, I'm just going to boom to one line, just kind of getting that out of the way. Yeah, I don't like the way that looks. Yeah, there we go. It's a little better. So again, I'm going to boom, 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 boom. I kind of still see something here. Oh, that's a little too big. Something here. Okay, let's see. If you do that, you can kind of see where some of the imperfections are. I even see something here that I don't like that far back. So it's good to also zoom out to get a wider view of what you can actually see. Okay. Alright, so I'm going to go back in, and I think it may have been this little thing here. Yeah, that looks pretty good. There is a line here that I'm not a fan of, so I'm going to get my patch tool and just go ahead and get rid of that particular line. Okay, oh no, I don't like that. You want to go ahead and go over that way. Alright, I'm going to back up just a little bit to see if you can still see that line. Nope. There's a line here I'm also going to fix as well. That's going to be during frequency separation as well. So, clone stamp tool, and I'm going to do the same exact thing I did with the other strands. Getting a little closer to this one. Clone stamp on the other side. Back to this side. And then I'll just use the patch tool for it being with the hair, because there's a lot of layers and little strands to that. Okay. Alright, just because that bothers me, you won't be able to see it, but that particular thing bothers me. Okay, so again, boom, 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 boom. And you can still kind of see that line here, but again, frequency separation is gonna go ahead and wipe all of that out. So I'm not worried too much. Alright, so this looks good for blemishes. Some people may want to get rid of that hair. I'm okay with it. This particular hair though, I don't like. So I will go ahead and get rid of that. Oh no, I don't like the way that looks. There we go. No, I don't like that either. Example here. Okay, that's a little better. And then again, I'm going to get my clone stamp. Just drag it over just a little bit. Drag that down. Drag that up. Drag that over. Okay. We just want it to be a little bit more even. Okay. So, boom, 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 boom. I don't like that particular area. Okay, I can take that. Okay, perfect. Alright, so now I'm going to go ahead and do my frequency separation. That's typically my next 2 layers. So what I do is I Command J, which is making a copy of the base layer. As you guys can see, base copy 1, base copy 2. That base copy 2, the ones at the top, I double click it and I'm going to make that my texture layer. And the one right underneath is going to be tone. Okay, so this layer is going to be all about the texture of the skin. So the pores and the bumps and all of that good stuff. The hair, the actual strand of the hairs. That is what is going to be on this first layer here. And then the tone is all about the color of the skin and how the colors blend is what I'm going to be focusing on with the tone layer. I'm going to go ahead and press Command and then Command G to group those together. And then I'm just going to title this group frequency separation, or freak sep is what I call it. So first thing I'm going to do is turn off the texture layer because I only want to work with the tone right now. I only want this layer on. So I turn that one off. Make sure the tone layer is on and it is selected. I go to Filter, Blur, Gaussian Blur. I don't know how to pronounce that. A lot of people say it many different ways, but I'm going to go with Gaussian Blur. And I'm going to get so that it is a little blurry, a little bit more than that. Yeah, about right there, it's good. So it's blurry, but you can still see the imperfections in the color of the skin. A lot of people try to get a lot of the texture out. I want to be able to see more of the tone because that's what I'm focusing on that layer. So about 2.9 is good for me. Now I'm going to turn my texture layer back on and you're going to notice that all of the texture comes back. Boom. So the eyelashes, the eyebrows, the skin texture, the hair texture, all of that came back. So I'm going to make sure I also highlight it so that it's selected. Go to Image, Apply Image. So with this, what am I doing? I am going to be taking the tone layer away, so subtracting it from the texture layer. So now all you can see is texture. This is only texture. You see hair strands, but not really any color, because that's exactly what we want. We don't want any color, we just want the texture. So this layer is subtracting the tone layer from the textured layer. Making sure the opacity is 100, scale of 2, and then the offset is 128. Clicking OK. And then for this layer, I'm going to make sure that it is on linear light, which is going to give me my base photo. See, there's no difference when I cut this group layer on and off, okay, which is exactly what we want at this time. So now I'm going to be focusing more so on the tone. So I'm going to take the texture layer and just go ahead and cut that off so that right now I should only be able to really see and focus on the tone, the color of the skin. I'm going to make sure I grab my lasso tool, which is this tool here, or you can simply press L to come up with the lasso tool. Depending on how large or small the area, I kind of gauge where to put the feathering at. This is going to be a pretty larger area, so I'm going to go ahead and put it on 30 pixels for the feathering. Go ahead and do that. Go to Blur, Gaussian Blur, and then here I'm looking more so for the smoothness of the color of the skin. So there's imperfections going from like highlighted here to a darker spot here. It's a little lighter here. I kind of want to make it a little bit more balanced. So that's where I'm going for. Okay, so not perfect because her skin is not. So I don't want this, like that's too much. So I'm going down so that I can still see a little highlight here, a little darkness here, but it's more smooth. Okay, and then when I turn this texture back on, you can still see the texture in her forehead. You guys see that? That's her natural texture. When I turn this layer on and off, you see there's a difference. It's smooth transitions. It's not harsh anymore. So, which is exactly what we want. So from here, this is what it looks like. Okay, alright, so now I'm going to go ahead, turn the texture layer off, make sure the tone layer is selected, and I'm going to make sure my lasso tool is selected as well, and I'm going to get around the cheek area. I'm going to get right under the larger underline of her eye. Because it's a little dark, I want to go ahead and soften that as well. And filter, blur, Gaussian blur here. You can see that it is from here to here. We want to soften it up as much as we can without doing too much. So that looks pretty soft. I like that. Okay, so you can see the texture is still there, right? And you can see that line is softer. Okay, here we have like a really harsh line going right under her cheek from where she did her makeup. We're going to go ahead and smooth that out, making sure I only get the skin that I want affected, or the tone that I want affected. So this is pretty good, but again, that line is pretty harsh, so I'm going to keep going until it's smoothed out just a bit. Oh, all right, there is perfect. Okay, so there still is a line, but you can definitely tell that it is way softened. It's not, oh, I keep wanting to use my finger. It's not a harsh line anymore. It's more of a gradient effect going on now. Okay, and again, you can still see that she has her skin texture. Okay, so I'm going to back up just a little bit more and turn that texture layer off, making sure my tone layer is selected. And now I'm going to L for my lasso tool to select this area here, her chin area. I'm not going to do too much here. So blur, or filter, blur, Gaussian blur. Okay, I'm going to zoom in just a little bit. Oops, too much. Okay, so I can get rid of this imperfection because the tone layer doesn't affect that. So that means, that tells me that the texture is the problem here. So I'm going to go ahead and press OK. Because the tone is good, it's more of the texture. That's my problem now. Okay, so once I'm done with the tone layer, I'll go ahead and fix that. I'm going to go ahead and get this done. It should be pretty much the same. That's a shortcut. If I wanted to do the same amount of blur in a certain area, I could just go here and then it's going to give me the same Gaussian blur that I had before. But because this is the nose, it typically doesn't need as much. Like, that's a bit much. See that highlight? I want to keep that there. So I'm not going to go as much. Whew, bless me. It's not corona, guys. I promise. It was just a sneeze. Okay. So her face looks a lot more smooth and put together, but it's still not too smooth. It doesn't look like porcelain skin. It doesn't look like a Barbie skin. It looks like she has really good skin and the makeup is applied very well, which is exactly what I go for. Please do not forget to hit this area very lightly. It has a lot of different tones in it that I love to keep. There's a lot of shadows and highlighted points. So you can still see it, but we just want to smooth it out. So this is it normally. We want to keep those colors, but just make them a little bit smoother. That's all, so that it blends in a little bit more. Yep, so you can't even see it from there, but I did do a little work there. Right? Very slightly done. Okay, so while I'm zoomed in very closely here, I'm going to go ahead and hit this area with my patch tool. For this texture, I don't really like that particular texture. So I'm just going to move it. Sure, I like that part. So I'm going to do the same thing over here just to get rid of the small bumps here. Okay, I don't mind them here, but I do mind them on that particular area. Okay, so now I'm going to go ahead and focus on the texture, which I don't like cutting off the tone layer for this. It doesn't mess with the tone at all, so you don't have to worry about that. I'm going to go ahead and fix the texture. That little line that was there, I don't really like it, so I'm going to go ahead and try to get rid of it. Okay, so let's see. I don't like that either, so let me go up something like that. Alright, so let's see. Yeah, definitely got rid of that line in that particular spot above. I don't really like it right here. Okay, yeah, that looks a lot better. Okay. So her skin texture on her face went... Bruh. Day. I know, but I can hear you when you go up and down the stairs. I need you to be quiet. Okay, we're gonna try this again. Alright, so I'm pretty much done with her face as far as frequency separation goes, but I like to be a little extra, so I'm going to get my lasso tool once again, making sure my texture layer is off and my tone layer is selected. I'm going to smooth this area out just a bit. You guys can see that only this part was selected even though I went all the way over here. That's again because of the feathering. That section was too small for this pixel feathering, so that's why I didn't select everything that I selected. I'm just going to smooth this out just a bit, and that's honestly because of my taste. I think her makeup was done like that intentionally, but you can kind of see now it's more of, keep trying to use my finger, it's more of a feathering effect going on here. Everything else looks pretty good. I love the way that her skin looks very natural. It's not done too much. Okay. Alright, so now I'm going to go ahead and focus more so on this hair, guys. I am not a big fan of it. I don't really know how to work when there's hair on here. I typically just keep it. I just smooth it out a little bit more so that it's not as noticeable. But if you have any tips on getting rid of like hair on the legs or hair on the arms, please comment below, because that is really a problem of mine. I really do not know how to get rid of those. So help me out. So this is what happens if you leave the texture layer on while you're messing or focusing on the tone. You literally just get to see how the skin looks. That's literally, that's an advantage in my opinion, but a lot of people can't focus on that. So they can't focus just on the skin texture or skin tone. So that's why they take off the texture layer. I do both depending on my mood, but now I can see a little bit more of the imperfections in her arm that's being hidden by the texture, which is the hair in this case. So I'm going to go ahead and go through this particular area again. So I'm going to back up. You see how you can still see those imperfections? Go to about right there. That's pretty good. Excuse me, that was a burp. Alright, so you can kind of see that it's smooth out just a bit like that. I am going to go ahead and get the knuckle area just because I want it to be more of a smooth transition. Okay, I don't want it to be harsh like this is super defined and super textured and then it goes into no texture at all. So I'm going to back up just a little bit. Now it's really hard to see the hair. I do like that effect. I probably take some of the frequency separation away from the edges. I typically get a little too close, and then so some of the black, if you can see, some of the black from her sweater is now transferred on her arm because of the Gaussian blur. So I'm going to go ahead and fix that once I'm done with her knees, the knee color, because I usually don't focus on the texture when it comes to the body parts that much. So right now I'm just going to focus on the texture of, the skin tone of her knee, making sure it's a little bit more balanced and you're unable to see. Can you see like a lot of discoloration here? I kind of want to keep the shadows and the highlights, so I may have to dodge and burn that once I'm done, just to make sure, you know, it's still a knee. Okay, so you see how it went from this to this. Everything is a lot more even. I'm going to make sure I add highlights, shadows here, and then I'm going to go ahead and fix this area as well. That way it's more of a smooth transition. But you see now, this is what happened to her arm. Some of the jean color is now on her skin. That means it's too close to the edge and that the radius is too high. So I'm going to go ahead and lower that just a bit. I'll do a little bit more. Okay. So now you can't really see that. And then when I turn the texture back on, it looks like it goes all the way under as well. So I'm going to go ahead and fix this area right here and keep that the same because it worked on the last one. So now I'm going to boom, 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 turn the texture layer off, making sure that I go to filter, blur, Gaussian blur, and we want the color to be nice and in sync, all one color. Boom, that looks really good. I like it. Okay, so now I'm going to back up. Again, I'm going to make sure I hit those shadows, highlights, just to make sure that that area now has depth. You can tell that it's a knee. So here we go. Okay, so I had to switch to using my phone to record because my camera couldn't record any longer. So here we go. All right, so I just erased, I just focused on the selective color, taking away the reds, yellows, whites, and now I'm focusing on the neutrals. I'm going to take it down just to, they play a pretty large role when working with the eyes, and skin tone as well. Like neutrals are in almost every color it seems. So again, like I said before, I'm going to tone this down. I always do too much, so I tone it down to make the eyes pop but not do too much. And I can see that on my left side of her face, it's still too bright. It's supposed to be shadows there based on her hair being there. So I'll probably do 26% is fine. Go just above the bigger area, making sure that it's on black because I want to take away some of it So, oh, that 26% is too high. So I'm going to go around 11 and just take away slowly. That way you can kind of see more of her eyes there. So you can see that it definitely pops out. I love to also highlight the actual light in her eye from my softbox. Make that a little bit harder, bring that size down to a little bit smaller is what I usually go for than the actual light in the eye. I want that to be kind of high because I really do like those to pop. You can see they are popping, and then I'm gonna also light up the bottom part of her eye because the light is at the top of each one. I'm gonna go ahead and light this area here. So I'm gonna make the hardness all the way to 0. Bring this up just a little bit and then bring this down because I don't want to do that too much. So let's go with about 4%, and I'm going to just build on that layer. Okay, which doesn't really play much of a role because she's so far back that I do want to lighten that area just a little bit, right? See her eyes are lit a little bit more. Okay, which if she was closer and there was more detail, you can definitely see a larger difference. So now I'm going to focus on the lips. My hardness is always 0 when it comes to this. I always start at 100% flow. And I do more of an ombre lip. Again, this is just a personal preference. Her lip is the same color all the way around. But this picture is for me. When I edited for her, it was exactly how her makeup was done. So it wasn't to appease me and what I wanted. It was more so for how she did her makeup. So now I'm going to put it on about 50% opacity to kind of go along that outside line. So that way you can kind of see it gets darker to more of a lighter color. I'm going to go to about 17% now. Get more of that inside area because I don't want to do too much. And then about 8% for the rest of her lip. That way you kind of get more of a gradient, which is what I definitely prefer. And of course, I'm going to lower the opacity down just to see her lips pop just a little bit more. Okay, and if you like the lighter color, I can do a curves layer, again, pressing Option or Alt, and then I can just lighten that area up just a little bit more so that it kind of resembles that first color. Oops, wrong thing. Yeah. Okay. And this is it without that, so it's a little bit lighter. Okay. Now it's time for the dodge and burning, which is typically the face, and then shadows and highlights. That's typically what I work on. Shadows for the burn, and then highlights for the dodge. I start off with dodging, and I go about 3%. Some people go 1% and build on, as I've stated before. Again, that takes quite a bit of time. I know 3% doesn't seem like a larger difference, but it is. So you can see now she kind of has more of a highlight on the top of her cheek. I do this and it kind of makes it stand out. Dodging and burning makes it look almost 3D, and it adds depth to the image, which is why I love that. And then I do exactly what you do with your highlights, your T-zone area. Some people do it on their forehead quite a bit, and then the nose area. I'm going to go ahead and cut this on and off. Yeah, you can definitely see those areas. Probably did a little bit too much down there, but that's okay. Just brighten areas just a little bit more. I kind of want to brighten you up a little bit more. And then down here, I like to brighten You know, some people put highlighter on the top of their lips to bring that out as well. Okay, so this is what her face looks like now. A little bit more on the oily side. I think for her chin, I'm gonna tone that down just a little bit. So make it a little bit larger. Then go up to about 22%, just to tone that down. You still see it, but it's not too much. All right, so now I'm gonna go in with the burn tool, or I guess it's a brush, but the burn layer, and focusing where you usually contour. Use contour for your makeup. So I'll probably do about 4%, and then I go around the forehead area. Okay, so you can see that it doesn't look like much, but yeah, it's definitely doing something. And then I go under the cheek, and then I go down here. Yep, creating more of that shadow. I go on the side of the nose to give you more of that contoured look. I definitely do the eyebrows. Some people do the eyelashes. Hers look really good, so I'm not going to touch those. And then I'm going to create a group. Remember Command G once everything is selected. Call this D for dodge and burn, and just give you a look at what that looks like. So for the burn, it's all on her hair. I don't like that, so I'm gonna make sure I go up, make sure the size is larger. There you go. And then take some of that away there. I'm gonna go back so you can kind of see, you can see that it shapes her face. For the burn layer, I'm definitely gonna go down on that. And then dodge layer also. Okay, so let's go here. Yep, you can see that her skin looks more sculpted now. So now I'm gonna go back to, make sure this is boom. Yeah, let's go about 15. Let's see how that looks. 15 is gonna be too much. Let's go about 5. Here we go. And literally just adding that depth that it had before, making it a little bit more poppy. Okay, so her knee now looks like it has dimension to it, which is exactly what we wanted. So this burn layer is still a little bit too harsh for me, so I'm gonna go ahead and bring that down. That should be pretty good. And then the dodge layer, let's go about 60, should be good. There you go, a slight difference. So I really like the way her skin looks. I am a person that really loves color and popization, if that's a word, which is not, but that's okay. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go to Camera Raw, and I'm going to work with some of their pre-installed presets. So I typically go with Vivid or Bright, and then I go from there. So Bright looks pretty good, but I like color, so I'm going to go with Vivid. And then I'm going to play around with it. Okay, so I always tone down the saturations, even though that's something I really love. It usually does too much, so you can definitely tell now the colors look really good. I like a little bit more contrast, and then add a little bit more texture so that it looks like she's kind of popping out. I really like that effect. Okay, so this is the before, this is the after, this is the before, this is the after. Yeah, she looks like almost like 3D to me, and I love that. So again, I'm going to focus on or play around with the blue primary, and I typically only work with the saturation. I don't try to touch anything else. Yeah, I like that. Okay, so boom, 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 boom. So now it's like she's popping out of the screen. I really like that. And then I'm going to, go to my liquify tool. So I'm going to zoom in to the nose, and I'm just going to, there's just a little section right here that I want to straighten out. Literally, that's all I wanted to do. Straighten that out just a little bit. And then that's it. Boom. Going up. Coming around here. Oh my God. He did not just ask him that. Alright, so I think that might be the end. Again, I love the messy look, so I'm not going to focus or fix anything on her hair. Like, I like the messy look. That's intentional. So I'm going to group it all together, and this is a before, after, before, after. I love it. One more step is to crop. I typically do 8x10 or 10x8, always that frame size. This is a really good crop here. I like that, so I'm going to go ahead and press. Oh my God. Okay. Then I'm going to go ahead and save it. So the first thing I do for saving is convert to profile, which compresses all of the edits that I've done so far onto one layer. Then I am going to go to image size, making sure this is 8x10. It's not original size. 8x10, 300 dpi is what I always do, or the pixels in inches. So 8x10 are the inches, and then 300 is the resolution that I want. I go to file, save as. I'm going to save it on my desktop. So desktop, because I already have a JPEG of that saved, I'm just going to put some random numbers or letters at the back. Click save, and okay, and I am all done. Okay, so I am now recording from my phone because my SD cards, they couldn't handle all of this information. Okay, so if you like what you saw, please make sure you like, comment, and subscribe to let your girl know. That's Mallory with an ARY, not an ORY. Okay, if you saw anything that I can improve on, comment below as well. I am always open to learning new things. If you learned something, let me know what you learned. If there's something else you want to see, let me know. Okay? And as always, I love you guys, and I will see you in my next video.